Is Hamas further starving desperate Gazans? That is what we're talking about on today's Newsmakers. I am joined by Johnnie Moore, a PR executive and the head of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. He is here to talk all about what he is hearing on the ground. That and more now on Newsmakers. Johnnie, you have taken the helm of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and we're going to get into the work that you're doing there. One of the big claims that we've seen among many critics of Israel is that Israel is somehow the biggest barrier to getting aid to the people of Gaza. What do you say to those who would posit that that's the case?
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier to getting aid to Gaza is a corrupt old system that has enabled the continuation of this war, that's enabled Hamas to steal the aid, to sell it to the Gazan people, to hoard the aid for their own fighters, and a type of exhaustion, with this process, and nobody tries anything different. I mean, which is what we're trying to do, actually. So we're trying to take a different approach, an approach that says it was a false choice, that some of the aid had to be used for nefarious purposes, that we can actually protect the aid, give it for free to people. And frankly, we haven't found Israel to be a barrier in that process at all. To our surprise, the biggest barrier to us has actually been the international system, the United Nations, the World Food Program, those types of organizations that have inexplicably chosen to boycott us, having never boycotted Hamas.
I was just going to say, it's interesting, having never boycotted Hamas, you often wonder, is the ideology the problem in some of these organizations, the refusal to place blame where blame should be, the refusal to say this was wrong, this was right. It seems like these international bodies, they either decline to do that, or at moments they side with the wrong party. And I don't want to lead the question too much, but do you think that actually then creates barriers with how things like aid are given out?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. The way aid has been used in the Gaza Strip has only made a bad situation worse. And, the international aid community says they have to do it this way because they have to be impartial. But the exact opposite is happening. I mean, they're not being impartial at all. The way they're doing this is benefiting one party, and impartiality doesn't necessarily mean neutrality. Okay, you can see very clearly right and wrong when something is working, when something isn't working. And our attempt at GHF is to take a system that everybody knows is broken. They all talked about it as broken. Nobody lied about it. Nobody said this wasn't happening. That all just, by the way, started in the last couple of weeks. They've all started saying this isn't happening. But we've all seen the videos. The aid trucks from the UN arrive in the Gaza Strip, and 2 minutes later, you have armed, Hamas terrorists or bandits sitting on top of them, stealing the aid. I mean, this cannot be the way this happens. And yet the international community, they don't care. Well, what we're doing is we're saying you actually can do this differently. You can give aid on scale without being diverted, without prolonging a conflict. It can be free. Our aid boxes have more in the daily caloric count for a daily meal than the UN aid boxes. We can do it right, do it well, and do it successfully. And this should be celebrated by the world. For some reason, it isn't. But one of the reasons why it isn't, Billy, is there's a very, very concerted disinformation campaign originating with Hamas itself, trying to block what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you look at Hamas and you wonder, any organization or group or political party that is running an area or a country or a state, their goal should be the betterment of the people living under them. And again and again and again, we've seen reports of where things have been, you've had bomb shelters put under hospitals and schools. You've had these tunnels. You've had all this insanity that we've seen again and again. And I think for the normal person, especially a Western mind, they say, what in the world is going on? Why would an organization behave that way? And I know this is a broad, big question, but with all the experience you have there in the region and understanding Hamas, what in the world is it that drives them to behave in this way?
I mean, you kind of expect it of Hamas, right? I mean, this is a terrorist organization that doesn't dress as soldiers. They dress as civilians. They do everything that you said they were doing. What one doesn't expect is that the international community just goes along with this stuff. An international community that largely exists on the dole of the American taxpayer and the European taxpayer. So, it wasn't a surprise that they were hiding tunnels under hospitals, that they were stealing aid. Everybody knew this stuff was happening. No one was willing to do anything about it. And even, this disinformation campaign I was referencing, a moment ago, it exists for two purposes. Hamas wants to scare Gazans from coming to get food at our distribution sites. So they're constantly spreading lies about like massacres and violence happening in our distribution sites and these sorts of things. Like they want to keep people from coming. And then, by the way, they're also threatening our local workers, even threatening their lives to try to keep them from helping us. That's goal number one. They want to scare the Gazans themselves from getting food. And yet the Gazans keep coming by the thousands to get food from us. So that's failing, thank God. But the second thing they want to do is they just want us to shut down. And so, with a lot of help from a lot of the press, they keep defaming us and attacking us and accusing us of all kinds of insane, false things. They just want us to shut down. But we're not going to shut down. Our mission is really, really simple. We just have to feed the people of Gaza.
How are you differentiating? How are you doing things differently than the international community is? Whatever you can share. I'm sure there are elements you don't want to share for specific reasons, but how are you taking a different approach that you have found, because I know you've delivered millions of meals, you have found to be successful?
Yeah, the first thing is like how we approach the problem from the very beginning. We started from the bottom up. You might say from first principles, okay? We had a problem to solve. The aid was being diverted on scale the moment it entered into the Gaza Strip. So how do we make sure that this aid is not used? That's it. And then we designed from the ground up to manage that process. So we created secure distribution centers. And those secure distribution centers are staffed by a combination of American contractors and of local Gazans. Those American contractors provide a sense of security, in the places designed in order to make it feel secure. The main thing these American contractors are doing, I saw it, yesterday. There was a little kid who got a cut on his head when people are hungry, and so there's a lot of crowding around the sites and people desperate to get something, which will calm down as we get more sites and as people get more food. This poor little kid got hit in the head. He's fine, thank God. But one of our security contractors is there providing basic first aid to the kid, making sure he's okay. So, and by the way, this is an incredibly experienced team. One of our key leaders spent 30 years in USAID. Another one spent a similar between 30 and 40 years in the U.S. Armed Forces. They've been to all the complex environments around the world. We just started from the ground up and said, these are the problems that need to be solved. How can we do it?
It's interesting. I've known you for a long time now, and you've done so many different things over the years. Fascinating career you've had. You could really be doing anything, and you are doing many things at the same time. But what was it that made you want to take on this challenge? It's a big challenge.
First of all, Billy, I'm volunteering. Okay, so I'm just volunteering to help feed these people. It's because I'm dedicated to peace in the Middle East. I mean, this is my passion, and I'm not ashamed that I have a very, very good and close relationship with Israel. I also have a very, very good and close relationship with the Arab countries. On October 7th, I was flying to Israel that evening, and then I was flying from Israel to Saudi Arabia, that later on in the week. And one of the things that happened on October 7th was an attempt to sabotage peace in the region. And I am totally, totally determined that we hand off a better world to our children, and that a better world can only happen if that part of the world is more at peace with itself and with its neighbors. And I love the Palestinian people. I love the people in Gaza. I hate that this war is happening. And until the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, there wasn't a way really for me to help on that part of this equation without also helping Hamas, which obviously I would not do, because we have to stand on the right side here. And impartiality, as I said, doesn't mean neutrality. And so I've been working for a long time on trying to get the hostages free. I'm still working on that, as much as I have before, as much as I can. And now I'm also working on making sure Gazans are fed. But this is a monumental task. It's taking an enormous amount of time. Like, this is a big problem. And unfortunately, rather than doing it with the international community, we're just fighting them every step of the way. And it shouldn't be that way. I keep saying, like, we're not the ones boycotting them. They're the ones boycotting us. Like, just stop fighting us. Like, just join us. Help us help these people. We'll learn from you. We'll trade ideas. We'll collaborate. We'll decide, like, if you don't like this, we'll do it a little differently, or maybe vice versa. Like, let's do this together, because the people in the Middle East have suffered for way too long, and it's time to stop it and to build peace.
Yeah, I mean, you have a situation now where Iran is now, obviously Israel and Iran are going back and forth here. And it is interesting because it really has felt like for a very long time, Iran has repeatedly said Israel should be wiped off the map. Their central goal has been to annihilate Israel. And you've not heard Israel saying the same thing back to them. What you have now, it feels like, is a situation where one country has ginned up a lot of unrest in that region, going to from October 7th down the line, supporting terrorists again and again. What do you think will happen next? I know this is hard to predict because this is an active situation and there's a lot happening in it. But what do you think will happen next? What are your thoughts on the current dispute there, which is much broader than what you're dealing with there in Gaza?
The truth is that Iran started this war from the very beginning. These were all Iranian proxies. And by the way, Iranian tactics. I mean, it was Iran that advised Hamas to make certain decisions. It was Iran that designed Hezbollah's infrastructure in the south of Lebanon. It was Iran that took over, Syria. It was Iran. And so, and by the way, a lot of other countries in the region were opposed to peace because they were fearful of what Iran would do if they pursued peace. And I think what has happened in recent days is there's now a quite clear demonstration that Iran, or the Islamic Republic rather, isn't a nation that we have to fear, right? It's weaker than everyone thought that it was. And those proxies are gone. I'm not an advocate for war. I'm an advocate for peace, but I only believe we get peace through strength. And fortunately, the United States of America, has taken a really, really strong, morally sensible position saying that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Because by the way, what we've learned since Israel started their preemptive actions in Iran, by the way, targeting military targets, while Iran is like indiscriminately firing missiles into civilian areas. But what we've learned since Israel's preemptive strike is, with no question, if Iran had been able to get a nuclear weapon, they would have used it. And what's even scarier is that we're starting to learn apparently through Israeli and U.S. intelligence, that it was Iran's intention not to create a nuclear weapon just for deterrent purposes in their own country, but they wanted to give that nuclear weapon to a proxy like the Houthis. And that's terrifying.
Absolutely. And I want to just, as we close out here, circle back to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, the work you're doing. I mean, there's so much. We could go on for an hour because there's so many different elements here. But where can people go if they want to support, if they want to get more information, if they want to see what it is that you guys are doing day in and day out?
Well, first of all, transparency is super, super important to us. So every day we release how many meals we provided. If it was an issue, we say it publicly. If we're trying something new, we say it publicly. It's in a short daily report. I post them on X. There's a GHF updates X account. You can go to ghf.org. This was it's all rapidly being set up, so there'll be more information there over time. Most of all, though, Billy, I hope people will pray for us. But even more than pray for us, pray for the Gazan people, pray for Israel, pray for the entire region. What we're doing, it should not be so hard to do what we're doing. We just want to feed people.
Well, that is a noble mission, and an important and an essential mission, especially in light of what is happening there. Johnnie Moore, appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
That's all for today's Newsmakers. Make sure you head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel and cbnnews.com for more of the news you need to read. We'll see you again tomorrow.